The recent incident, which left 7 miners dead and 6 injured at the Sibanye-Stillwater's Masakhane mine in Driefontein, has yet again brought the issue of safety in the mining industry to the fore. The tragic incident happened after 13 miners were trapped underground after a rock fall caused by a seismic event caused a fall of ground last week. According to COSATU, more than 25 miners have died since the beginning of 2018. Let's now talk about the safety in the mining industry, and we're joined by Ken Costa, who is an occupational health and safety expert and partner from Webber Wentzel. Good to have you, Ken. Thanks very much for joining us.
Morning, Leah.
You know, it's just been a very difficult year in terms of, I only emphasize this year because we're talking about it since the beginning of this year, where we're just proving the fact that South Africa is one of the leading countries when it comes to deaths in mining, and it's a very scary prospect. Talk to us about your views on the safety of our mines.
So I think what's very important to understand is that whilst, of course, mining is a dangerous activity, there has been a general downward trend in terms of mine fatalities over the last few years. Last year as well being sort of one of the record years in terms of fatalities. I don't really like to speak about that in terms of statistics.
Yeah.
Mining is dangerous work, and I think that employers have put various measures into place to comply firstly with the Act, and then often go over and beyond what is required in terms of creating systems that employees can rely on. So underground mining is dangerous work.
Yeah.
And it requires all parties, the employers, the trade unions, as well as employees, to sort of collaborate. But when I say collaborate, I mean to actually live a culture of health and safety on a mine.
Yeah, it seems that, and if we look at the numbers, and we don't want to get into them, but unfortunately we do have to analyze them and see where we're going wrong and what's happening. It seems that there's been a major increase since last year, and we're seeing them happening a lot more frequently. Is it because our mines are not being kept up to date in terms of safety and all the precautions in place? Are we digging too deep? Is the seismic activity something we should worry about? What are some of the key reasons as to why the shift is happening, and it seems to be happening more frequently?
Well, I think another aspect to bear in mind in relation to your point is that the South African mining economy since 2012 has taken a big knock, and
Absolutely.
There seems to be a ramp up. I think there's a general positive prevailing mood, and with production increasing effectively, what does happen is that I guess statistically there is a greater chance of accidents occurring. So I think what mining companies really need to consider is the implementation of technology and innovation. I really think that if there are ways, there are expensive ways to mechanize mines, but these are aspects which could be used to lessen the exposure of human beings underground.
Yeah.
Again, in South Africa, as you know, the mining industry is hugely responsible for employment, and you have this constant struggle between mechanization versus
human capital
losing jobs.
Losing jobs, and that is a big problem. I suppose then I have to ask another question in terms of the mine owners. You know, we look at mine owners, and it doesn't matter which way we try and spin this. They're interested in profits. That's what they want. So they want more and more and more. And as we're saying, there's been a tick up. So is it kind of that they will do anything to get that profit?
So I would, of course, disagree with that proposition, because I think that mine owners and the CEOs have been quite clear in the market to say that we will not mine if it cannot be done safely. And I think that what is also perhaps not that apparent in sort of the milieu of the thing is that a lot of mining companies these days offer safety incentives and reward safe mining as opposed to just being obsessed with production. Of course, our mines need to be productive, and it's my view that if, in terms of the Mine Health and Safety Act, as well as the reliance on the world-class systems which a lot of mining companies have put into mines, that if those are adhered to, we should be able to get onto the right trajectory in terms of how we deal with these types of accidents. I mean, the tragic accident that happened, at Sibanye's mine is related to seismicity. Seismicity is quite a complex concept. It's not always caused by mining. It could also be natural phenomena.
Okay.
And so it's really about, I think, employers, employees, and labour coming together and understanding. And when I say that, I mean employees have a duty in terms of Section 22 and 23 of the Mine Health and Safety Act to look after their own health and safety as well as the health and safety of others. And in terms of Section 23, employees have a right to leave a dangerous working place.
Yes, I know, and Solidarity keep on emphasizing the fact that, you don't have to go there, but the reality is if I don't go there, I don't get paid and I cannot work. So you almost put your life at risk in order to make the money, and unfortunately in some cases you do lose your lives. Is there enough stringent legislation in place to punish mine owners and to hold them accountable?
Well, there certainly is the Mine Health and Safety Act, and together with various regulations which get quite practical about how many people you need at a various place in a mine, what is regarded as travelling time to and from a workplace. So the Mine Health and Safety Act is sufficient in terms of its ability to hold people to account. The Mine Health and Safety Act focuses specifically on employers to ensure that they comply and provide a safe and healthy workplace to all employees. And then, of course, anybody who causes the negligent death of another person could be held liable. So to give you an idea of the sanctions in the Mine Health and Safety Act, there would be an administrative fine which could be levelled against a mining company of 1 million rand per contravention. And then there's also individual fines of up to 1 million rand, again on a discretionary basis, as well as the possibility of 5 years imprisonment. So the Mine Health and Safety Act itself is sufficient in terms of dealing with all the relevant stakeholders in the mining industry, and the Mine Health and Safety Act is enforced effectively by the Department of Mineral Resources, who have sort of a long tradition, if I can say, of being quite rigorous and hard on mine owners after these accidents.
Well, I mean, we saw now, just coming out I think it was last week, please correct me, or the week before, it was the big class action lawsuit coming to an end there for mine workers suffering from silicosis and tuberculosis, and this was a class action settlement with the Operational Lung Disease Working Group representing some of the gold mining companies. So that was a big settlement and provides compensation. I mean, this dates back to 1965, so it's a long, protracted battle where you almost feel that the mine workers' rights, it's a very long road ahead if they do want to take on the mines. But this is an example of something that can be achieved through the legislation that's in place.
Well, I certainly think so. I think that, speaking as a lawyer, I think that the framework is there. It really comes down to implementation. How do you instill that culture of health and safety? To give you an example, a lot of my clients have got various ways in which they do this. They have a thing called visible felt leadership. Visible felt leadership is when mine management go down on a regular basis underground or visit the various mining places, sections or areas where the people are working. And the whole idea is not just for it to be legislated that you will make so many visits to a various section or place, but rather for the employees themselves to see their bosses coming down, seeing the workers at at their place of work.
Yeah.
And in fact, having a sort of a form of counseling, on-the-job training, which I think is very important. The other thing that often gets bandied about with our clients is that our clients often say to us, well, if we discipline employees for health and safety contraventions, everybody always thinks that that ends in dismissal. It doesn't have to. Discipline can take various forms, but I do think it's important that these things are implemented.
Yeah. Just finally, as we wrap this up, there's the talk of digging too deep, going deeper and deeper and deeper, and this could be causing a lot of problems. We also spoke about the complications of the seismic activity and all of that, and that could be a natural phenomenon, but perhaps maybe more research should be done into that and whether or not it is safe to do that, because you're putting lives on the line. And also digging deeper. Perhaps if you can help us out. We've got 1 minute to news,
Sure.
so I'm stealing some time here.
So I think there is something called the Safety in Mines Research and Advisory Council. After accidents, there's generally a levy that is imposed upon mines to add to that, which is really a body established under the header of the Chamber of Mines, which is there to search and try and create these innovative aspects. Because I agree with you 100%. Innovation, mechanization definitely is going to assist us. Whether or not you mine towards a fault or is very difficult to do on simply a mine plan. So if the use of technology is certainly something which I would recommend is something that we do invest in as an industry.
Yeah, especially with such a big industry in South Africa and so many lives on the line. Well, thank you for talking to us. An absolute pleasure having you here. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the numbers. We've done such a great job. I mean, when we look back to 1995, some statistics that I've got looking at, we were sitting at a death toll of 500, and we really did bring that down significantly. And looking at numbers from last year, I think it was sitting at around, in the double figures, which is still too high, but from 500 down to, I think, somewhere in the, I'm not even sure, I think it was about 84, I think it was at 73, I beg your pardon. That was the final number, 73 last year. We don't want to see that number climbing, so we need to get the safety back in. Ken Costa is a safety expert and partner from Webber Wentzel discussing safety in mines. All right, it is 8 o'clock. Let's get your news. Here is Palesa.